Observe the natural world. The cycle of bloom and decay, the turning of seasons, the rise and fall of tides. Everything changes. Everything flows. Nothing remains static. This constant flux, this inherent impermanence, is the fundamental rhythm of existence. We see it in our own lives, too. Our bodies change, our relationships evolve, our circumstances shift. We celebrate births, mark milestones, and inevitably, we encounter endings. The end of a job, the end of a relationship, the end of an era. And then, there is the ultimate ending, the one transition that awaits every living being. Death. The word itself can evoke a cascade of feelings: fear, anxiety, sadness, denial, perhaps even curiosity. It's the great unknown, the final frontier that touches every life, yet remains shrouded in mystery and often deep-seated apprehension. We see headlines about mortality rates, hear scientific explanations of biological cessation, encounter philosophical debates about consciousness. We attend funerals, grieve losses, and perhaps push thoughts of our own mortality to the back of our minds. Why does this universal experience, this natural part of the life cycle, often fill us with such profound dread? What is it about cessation, about non-being, that triggers such deep fear? And how can we learn to relate to death, not as a terrifying specter, but as an integral part of life's unfolding? How can we face our own impermanence and the impermanence of those we love with wisdom, courage, and perhaps even a sense of peace? Understanding the nature of death, both scientifically and spiritually, and exploring practices that cultivate acceptance of impermanence might be the key to unlocking a richer, more meaningful, and less fear-driven life. Today, we delve into one of life's most profound inquiries. What is the nature of death from both scientific and Buddhist perspectives, Anicca? Why do we harbor such a deep-seated fear of it? And how can the contemplation of death, Maranasati, and impermanence actually help us face our finitude and that of others with greater wisdom and find genuine consolation? Science approaches death primarily as a biological process, while psychology explores our complex reactions to it. The biology of cessation. Clinical death, traditionally defined by the irreversible cessation of cardiopulmonary function, heart stops beating, breathing ceases. Brain death. With advances in life support, the definition often shifts to irreversible cessation of all brain function, including the brainstem. This is considered the point of legal death in many places, as the brain is the seat of consciousness and bodily regulation. Cellular death. Even after brain death, individual cells and tissues can remain alive for some time. Biological death is a process, not a single instant event, involving the gradual breakdown of systems and cellular functions. Information theoretic death. Some modern concepts propose death as the point where the information constituting a person's mind and personality, memories, connections, is irretrievably lost due to brain destruction. The psychology of death anxiety, thanatophobia. Fear of the unknown. A primary driver is the uncertainty of what, if anything, happens after death. This void of knowledge can be deeply unsettling. Fear of non-existence, annihilation. The prospect of one's consciousness, identity, and experiences simply ceasing to exist can be terrifying. Fear of loss. This includes the loss of self, loss of experiences, loss of relationships, loss of control, and leaving loved ones behind. Fear of the dying process. Anxiety about potential pain, suffering, dependency, or loss of dignity during the process of dying. Existential concerns. Death forces confrontation with questions about life's meaning, purpose, and legacy. The awareness of finitude can trigger deep existential anxiety. Terror management theory, TMT. This influential theory posits that much of human culture, e.g., self-esteem, cultural worldviews, belief in literal or symbolic immortality, serves as a psychological buffer against the paralyzing terror of death awareness. Social and cultural views. Death denial. Many modern Western cultures exhibit a degree of death denial, sanitizing the process, hiding it away in hospitals, and avoiding open discussion. Cultural rituals. Funeral rites, mourning practices, and beliefs about the afterlife vary widely across cultures, providing frameworks for processing grief and making sense of death. Medicalization. The focus on prolonging life at all costs can sometimes overshadow quality of life and preparation for a peaceful death. Science defines death as biological cessation and the irreversible loss of brain function. Psychology reveals our deep-seated anxieties rooted in the unknown, loss, and the challenge to life's meaning. Our cultural context further shapes how we perceive and cope with mortality. Buddhism offers a radically different perspective, viewing death not as a horrifying endpoint, but as a natural transition within the continuous cycle of change, and seeing the contemplation of death as a path to wisdom and liberation. Anicca, impermanence, as universal truth. Impermanence is one of the three marks of existence, tilakkhana. Everything that arises must eventually pass away. This applies to thoughts, feelings, physical objects, relationships, and life itself. Death is the ultimate manifestation of Anicca. Recognizing and accepting this universal truth, rather than resisting it, is fundamental to reducing suffering. Fear of death stems largely from clinging, upadana, to a false sense of permanence, clinging to life, to self, to experiences. Maranasati, mindfulness of death. Far from being morbid, the deliberate contemplation of death is a core Buddhist practice. Its purpose is not to induce fear, but to overcome complacency. Reminding ourselves of life's fragility motivates us to practice diligently and live meaningfully now. Reduce clinging. Contemplating the inevitable loss of our body, possessions, and loved ones helps loosen our attachment to them. Appreciate the present. Awareness of death heightens the preciousness of each moment of life. Cultivate urgency for liberation. Understanding that death can come at any time fuels the aspiration to attain liberation from the cycle of suffering, samsara. Develop equanimity. Facing the reality of death helps cultivate balance and non-reactivity towards life's ups and downs. Death as transition, not annihilation, from a Buddhist view. While Buddhism rejects the notion of an unchanging, permanent soul, Atman, it posits the continuation of a stream of consciousness, Vijnana Soda, or mind stream, Siddhasantana. Conditioned by past karma, actions, and intentions, this mind stream continues after the dissolution of the physical body, leading to rebirth in a new form within samsara. Death is seen as a separation of consciousness from the current physical base, a significant transition point influenced by the state of mind at the time of dying and accumulated karma. Overcoming fear through wisdom and practice. The fear of death is seen as rooted in ignorance, avijja, ignorance of the true nature of reality, impermanence, no self, and clinging. Wisdom, prajna, gained through understanding dharma and meditative insight directly counteracts this ignorance. Practices like cultivating compassion, karuna, loving kindness, metta, ethical conduct, sila, and meditative concentration, samadhi, purify the mind, reduce negative karma, and create the conditions for a peaceful death and favorable rebirth or ultimate liberation, nirvana. Consolation and understanding. True consolation comes not from false hopes of permanence, but from understanding the natural laws of existence. Accepting impermanence allows for grieving loss without being consumed by despair. Understanding karma and the possibility of rebirth offers a framework where actions have meaning beyond one lifetime, and connection isn't entirely severed, but transformed. Buddhism reframes death from an annihilation to fear into a natural, albeit profound, transition. It offers mindfulness of death not to depress, but to awaken us to the preciousness of life and the urgency of cultivating wisdom and compassion. Let's explore practices to integrate the wisdom of impermanence and cultivate peace around death. Daily impermanence reflection. Take a few moments each day to consciously notice change. Observe the weather shifting, thoughts arising and passing, sensations in your body changing. Reflect, this too is impermanent. This too will pass. Extend this reflection gently to your own life and the lives of others, acknowledging the natural flow of arising and ceasing without dwelling morbidly. Maranasati light, mindfulness of death. Find a quiet space. Bring to mind the simple, undeniable fact. Death is certain. The time of death is uncertain. Breathe with this awareness. Notice any feelings that arise, fear, sadness, acceptance, and simply allow them to be present without judgment. Reflect on how this awareness might inspire you to live more fully today. What truly matters? Gratitude for the present. Contemplating impermanence naturally fosters gratitude. Make a conscious effort to appreciate the small things you often take for granted. A breath, a conversation with a loved one, the warmth of the sun, the ability to see or hear. Recognize the preciousness of this current moment, knowing it will not last forever. Loving kindness for self and others facing finitude. Extend wishes of well-being towards yourself and others, acknowledging your shared condition of impermanence. May I be free from fear. May I live with ease. May I face change with courage and peace. Then extend this to loved ones and eventually to all beings. May you be free from fear. These practices gently cultivate acceptance, reduce fear, and anchor us in the present, transforming the awareness of death into a catalyst for wise and compassionate living. Death remains one of life's greatest mysteries. Science describes the biological shutdown, psychology maps our anxieties, and cultures offer rituals and narratives. Buddhism invites us to look directly at impermanence, not with fear, but with mindful curiosity. It suggests that contemplating death is not about ending life, but about enriching it, stripping away the trivial, clarifying our values, and motivating us to live with greater presence, purpose, and kindness. The fear of death often stems from our resistance to change, our clinging to a self we believe to be solid and permanent. By understanding Anicca and practicing Maranasati, we can begin to loosen that grip. Can we shift our perspective from seeing death as an enemy to accepting it as a natural, inevitable part of the dance of life? Can the awareness of our shared mortality foster deeper compassion and connection rather than isolation and fear? How might truly embracing impermanence change how we spend our days, how we treat ourselves, and how we relate to others? Finding peace with death isn't about eliminating sadness or grief, but about meeting the reality of life's limits with wisdom, courage, and an open heart. It's about understanding that every ending is also, in some way, a beginning. What thoughts or feelings arise for you when contemplating death or impermanence? Are there practices or perspectives that bring you comfort or clarity when facing loss or the idea of your own finitude? How can we support each other in living fully while acknowledging life's impermanent nature? Share your insights and experiences in the comments below. Let's create a space for open, compassionate dialogue about life's most profound transition.